Aha! A little symbol. Let's bring it over here. Uh-oh.
The filming Daniel.
Hey guys, it's Daniel here, back with a new review. And today I'm going to be reviewing the newest installment to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as well as the fourth Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, and one set many years after this epic, Spider-Man Brand New Day. So Spider-Man Brand New Day takes place about 4 years, I think, after the events of No Way Home, as things are not looking well for poor Spidey. Because after the events of No Way Home with the multiverse collision, the world had to completely forget about Peter Parker's existence, so now nobody knows who Peter is. So Peter is just now completely on his own, and with the addition of his friends, Ned and girlfriend MJ not remembering him, he's now alone, just trying to be good at being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. However, things start to get a bit shaky, as not only is Peter discovering some sort of new power inside of him, as he's kind of more mutating a little bit into more of an actual spider-censored person, but also there's a mysterious force controlling minds. So now Peter must find out what this mysterious force is, and how to stop it with the help of good old Frank Castle, aka the Punisher from Daredevil. And from here, the brand new day begins. Okay, so before I talk about what I think of this one, I'll discuss what I think of the first three Tom Holland Spider-Man films, which I haven't seen in a while, so this is just my latest thoughts on the movie, from the last time I've seen them. The first one, Spider-Man Homecoming, I thought was pretty good. It was okay. It did get a little bit too silly and a bit clunky with the multiple messing up and making mistakes, but I think maybe that works in the film's favour because it's a coming-of-age story for Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man. It had a great villain with the Vulture. Overall, it was a pretty good time. I think it was pretty good. The second one, Far From Home, I thought was a little bit better. It does still have a few annoying traits from Homecoming, but I liked the going around the world aspect. I think Jake Gyllenhaal did a fantastic job as Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, which if you've seen the movie you'll know he's not Mysterio. Which I think the twist behind that is actually very clever, and I liked the chemistry between Peter and MJ, and it was a very good one, which ended on a cliffhanger leading into the next one, Spider-Man No Way Home, which from my last experience watching it, I still absolutely love. I thought it was a great movie. I love the addition of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies and the Mark Webb Spider-Man movies, with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield coming back. I love that they gave them nearly the entire second half to have screen time. The villains were fantastic, especially Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. And the reason why it's my favourite is because it had the most complex emotional story out of any of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, especially with the interactions between Peter and MJ and poor Aunt May, and the ending just leaving you on an emotional level, serving as the bittersweet conclusion to the first phase of Peter Parker's journey in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which then leads to the start of his second phase with Brand New Day. And I was very interested to see it. I was very intrigued when I found out that Jon Bernthal was coming as Frank Castle. A few cast members that we didn't know who were going to play, so big surprises in this movie. And I was very interested to see the movie for the fact that we're going to see an actual standalone Tom Holland Spider-Man movie where he's matured into Spider-Man. He's got a brand new suit, so I was very interested to see it. So I went to the cinema to see it, and I have to tell you guys, if you're somebody that is one of those people, like everybody else, that thinks that this movie is absolutely, no pun intended, amazing, and it's absolutely the best Spider-Man movie of all time, it's a fantastic movie, and more importantly, it's more than just a meh kind of grade, you're probably not going to like what I have to say here, because I just thought it was fine. Yeah, unfortunately, I was looking forward to it, and I came out just thinking the movie was okay. It was good, it was okay, it was good. I enjoyed a good chunk of it, but there were some things that bothered me about it as well. But before we talk about the bothered stuff, let's talk about what I really like. Hands down, the best thing about this film are the interactions, performances, and chemistry between Tom Holland as Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, and John Bernthal as Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. Their interactions were the most entertaining part, and honestly the most mesmerizingly brilliant written parts of the movie. I love seeing these two interact. I love the fact that both of their personalities from their two separate times in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with Punisher being from the Daredevil series and Punisher series, kind of being a more brutal and like brooding, rampaging man, and Spider-Man being more of a, you know, kind of optimistic with a few hindrances, but more of a joking kind of element. And I was kind of worried that they were going to try to tone these characters down, especially John Bernthal's Punisher, to make him almost like just a joke. But besides kind of holding back his profanity a bit, most of his profanity was there, but his behaviour, it felt like these two came together to have a new kind of interaction, but still keep their same personalities. I especially loved the way that John Bernthal performed Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. He was absolutely phenomenal, alright? Like, he's literally not lost his step. I've seen only a few episodes of Punisher, and I've seen season 2 of Daredevil. And for me, besides having a bit more comedic side to him, it felt like the same Punisher, for the most part, despite holding back his profanity a bit. I mean, his performance, in my opinion, had the same mannerisms, the same tone of voice, and the same personality from Daredevil Season 2, with a hint of, like, a bit more charisma. To me, I can get behind this version of the Punisher, because, for me, Spider-Man and Punisher's chemistry in this film is exactly like Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman in Deadpool and Wolverine. Even though these two are having more of a comedic kind of like interaction, the more serious parts of their interactions, primarily with Wolverine and Frank Castle, those two characters keep their same personality with a hint of a funny side now and again, but still keeping their same personality, even though they're talking to kind of goofballs in red masks. Yeah, okay, you see the comparison a bit there. But I love that John Bernthal did that. The same reason why I loved that Hugh Jackman performed Wolverine that way, because they could have just played Frank Castle as just a big joke. But they didn't. He took the role seriously, he understood the material, and I'm thrilled that he did that. So, and I would love to see more MCU movies they could put him in. Of course, Tom Holland is still great as Peter Parker / Spider-Man, and I think that's probably the second best part of the movie in my opinion. I love Peter's character arc throughout the film. I love that after the events of No Way Home, he's now like trying to continue to mature more. We can tell that he's matured over the past 10 years since he first showed up in Captain America Civil War, and now he's fully become Spider-Man. At least from what we can tell, he's slowly just being the personality of Spider-Man. He has many emotional moments that, in my opinion, remind me of his scenes in No Way Home that have the same heart to it, as well as him trying to take advantage of his new situation. Because we see in the trailer that MJ and Ned are in the movie, but he doesn't try to tell them exactly who he is. He's more just kind of leaving traces, even, and kind of just checking on how they are. And I like that even though he's dealing with this pain, he still is trying to do what he did at the end of No Way Home, which is to keep his identity a secret from them in order to keep them safe. And I love that he takes advantage of the new situations. And his arc throughout the film, for the most part, I think is a really great next evolution for his character, and I'm very interested to see what more they could do with him later in the MCU. And his suit, okay? That's one of the biggest things I agree with critics who love this movie. I love the design of the suit. It's a classic, like, comic book Spider-Man suit with just the nice kind of layers to him, the way that it looks, and the way that Tom Holland just slipped into that suit, keeping the same personalities. Like, Tom Holland played Spider-Man in 2021. It's now 2026, nearly 5 years later, and Tom Holland slipped back into that role like he never left. It definitely made us kind of miss him as Spider-Man, because... And also, like, that time since No Way Home, God, how time flies. But I thought Tom Holland did fantastic in this film, and I think that he fell back into that role like it was nothing. I think for the most part, I think Zendaya is still pretty good as MJ. I don't think she's as good as an actress in this one as she was in the other Spider-Man movies she was in, but I still thought she did a pretty good job. And what I love about MJ's character in this film is that I love that the film doesn't like try to go out of its way straight away to go back on the ending of No Way Home with her character. For me, I think that what they did with her actually does fully respect the ending of No Way Home, but it does evolve in ways that we weren't expecting, but also kind of expecting, but in a bittersweet kind of fashion. And I love that by the end of the film, there's really nothing that people would want, but there's also nothing that people don't want either. I feel like that they kind of ended it on a compromise that doesn't really go for the traditional ending that we were wanting, but sets up for possibilities in future movies. I don't know, it's hard to say exactly what it is because I don't want to spoil how MJ's character is handled, but I think that her role in the movie, for what she was given, was really good. What I really love about this Tom Holland Spider-Man film, compared to the other ones, is its new direction and style. I love the look of the film through the lens of the camera and the kind of more colourful yet dark coloured grim atmosphere that the film goes for with its look. I think the reason why this happened is because John Watts is no longer the director of Spider-Man anymore. He did the first three, and we got some of the same writers from those movies, but a different director this time. And I gotta say, whoever the director was for this movie, they did a fantastic job making it feel like a different looking Spider-Man film compared to the first three. And I love that this new look kind of is going on throughout many other MCU movies that's come out recently. They did it with Thunderbolts. They had that kind of design with Thunderbolts. They had it, I think, with Fantastic Four First Steps. And it looks like they're going to be having it later this year with Avengers Endgame. I love the new look of the MCU right now. I did love the original look, like from Infinity War to Endgame. I did like that look, but this felt like the next evolved stepping stone of the MCU, and it was definitely the next stepping stone visually for a Spider-Man film in this one, and I love that they actually did that direction. There were some action sequences and effects that I thought were very well done. I think that some of the fights with Spider-Man and some of his villains they faces that we've seen in the trailer, I have my issues, I'll discuss it later, but of course, one of the most iconic things about the movie that was advertised in the trailers is the return of the Hulk. And I will say, the scene with the Hulk I thought was really good, and it was awesome that this is the OG Hulk that has not been in the MCU for a very long time. I would say we haven't seen him since Infinity War, but even with that Hulk, we hear him like talking a good chunk of the time, especially like in Thor Ragnarok. I think the last time we actually got this kind of version of the Hulk in this film, for me, I felt like we haven't seen him since Age of Ultron, when it got into that Quinjet and flew off into space. That version of the Hulk felt like the same one in this film. So it's either Age of Ultron or Infinity War where you haven't seen this version of the Hulk. And I think overall the look of the Hulk I thought was fantastic. I love that how big it looked, and the scene with that version of the Hulk I thought, for what it was given, was really good. And I guess the last thing that I will say I liked about the film is that the score was still phenomenal, and I liked that they incorporated a few new themes into this one, while still keeping some of the same ones from the previous Spider-Man movies. I have no interest in re-listening to the score right away. I don't think it's as emotionally captivating as a score as No Way Home, especially with that theme, Exit Through the Lobby, in No Way Home. That was an emotionally iconic theme. But for what they gave us in this film, I thought that the score served its purpose very well. But unfortunately, guys, those are all the good things that I have to say about the film. And they are really good. I love the interactions with the Punisher. Peter's arc was fantastic and a great evolution from the movies. The look and style was fantastic. Unfortunately, though, the few problems I have are majorly effective, and they really derail the film from being something as good as everybody says it is. And I know this is going to be a very controversial review, and I know that a lot of people love this film and is considering it the better Spider-Man movie compared to the first three, which, honestly, I do not understand how most people are saying this is better than No Way Home. I mean, nostalgia aside, it's not the nostalgia factor that makes No Way Home better than this one, in my opinion, although that is an addition. I felt the emotional substance and stories in No Way Home, with the villains and with Peter, were handled better in that one than they do in this one. And again, if you love this film, that's perfectly fine. I just thought it was an okay film, but there are problems that really sustain the film into kind of the meh category for me. First off, I did feel like the pacing of the film, especially in the first third, it did start the film off very slow. And I know that this is technically like the first of a possible new trilogy, so you want the time to establish things for your first film. And I thought that the pacing did serve that very well. I think because the pacing can get slow in moments that aren't as like engaging to watch in the film, it did kind of take the experience away, because I would be like, But that's how I was in many times in the theatre. I do feel bad because I did kind of have this kind of thing with like many other films, and even recently with Thunderbolts, which people really like Thunderbolts. I was not the biggest fan of it because I felt like the comedy was too much stretched, that vault scene was too long, and some of the characters in the gang I didn't really have too much interest in seeing. But the same thing happens with this one. I felt like that I was just kind of bored in a few moments, especially when the pacing can slow a scene down. Another thing that is involved in the film that, honestly, I don't really see a reason as to how this actually flows very consistently in the film. There is a ton of fan service in the film. And don't get me wrong, I love a good amount of fan service. No Way Home had a good amount of fan service too. But the difference is that you see in the trailer that there are multiple iconic Spider-Man villains that are in the movie. Like Scorpion, who did appear in Homecoming, from what I remember. And I didn't really see a reason why he had to be in the movie. I mean, besides doing one thing... Honestly, that could have just been a regular robber or a regular, like, person that has tech, and it wouldn't have really changed that much. I didn't feel like it needed to be an iconic Spider-Man villain. And the other Spider-Man villains you see in the trailer that look like they're in a montage, they're in a montage. That's it. That's all we get to see of those villains. And I felt like that the reason why this is a kind of a problem is that not only does it take away the opportunity to see these villains in good amount of action, it also kind of takes away the experience of watching a Spider-Man movie that has the opportunity to use OG Spider-Man villains at their disposal, compared to the original three movies where they were more in line with like more of the MCU, with like MCU characters and stuff. I felt like this one was going to actually be like an OG Spider-Man movie without having too much connections to the MCU, until we eventually get like connections later down the line. But I felt like the way that you kind of use these villains in a kind of wasteful way, and also add in characters from other MCU projects, it kind of takes away that experience. Like, honestly, I didn't really see a reason why the Hand had to be in this movie. I don't understand why those ninjas had to be the Hand. They didn't really serve anything to the plot, and I don't think changing their looks and making them fight Spider-Man is really going to make me change my mind about the Hand, because I was never a big fan of the Hand to begin with. I didn't really feel like they were that interesting of a threat in the Defenders. I felt like the film also kind of disappointed me with how they kind of underused Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk. Now, don't get me wrong, I really like Bruce Banner in the MCU. I think that Mark Ruffalo is a great actor in the MCU, and I think he's fantastic as Bruce Banner. And I like that Bruce Banner is like still trying to keep himself more under control as his regular Bruce Banner self, because he used that device from She-Hulk, which I don't recommend I'd watch the first episode of She-Hulk and then just leave it at that. The rest of it, I wouldn't recommend. It's ugh. But I like that Bruce is doing that, and I think Mark Ruffalo does a good job. The problem is that I think the scenes you see of him in the trailer are the only scenes you see of him in the movie. He shows up 2 times in the entire film. And besides encouraging Peter to do something, what else does he need to do in the film? I mean, yes, the Hulk fights him, but any kind of big monster could have fought Peter. I didn't really see a reason why it had to be the Hulk, specifically. And Bruce Banner and Hulk being in the movie itself, it's cool, and I wish they gave him more of a purpose, but if you would have taken him out and just used, I don't know, Scorpion or some other character that is like an inventor, you really didn't really need to have... I don't know, people might disagree with me, and maybe he did need to be in the movie. I just felt like he was very underused, and it added to the too much cameo fan service, which I think the previous film did much better, because the fan service served a purpose to the story, with Andrew Garfield saving MJ, Tobey Maguire helping Peter through his trauma, the villain serving a purpose as Peter helps to fix them, the Goblin serving as a formidable foe, teaching Peter about the importance of how vengeance isn't always just one side, as that's the Goblin, not Norman, doing these evil stuff. Norman is innocent, the Goblin isn't, so take him down. I love that the fan service served a purpose to the story. From what I've seen in this film, not as much. However, in my opinion, the biggest issue I had with this film, and it's the thing that really just ruined the movie for me for the most part, with how they pretty much had this thing be one thing, but then like later down the line they tried to turn it into something else. And it, for me, I didn't really like the direction they were going with it, is that the film does have a quote-unquote villain, or a villainous character, somebody that acts mostly villainous. Now, again, I will not give away who this character is. I felt the reveal of the character, while being a theory from other people, and it actually came true, was good. I was very interested when they revealed this character who it was going to be. Although, whoever the actor is that played this character, I knew, before this character showed up, I was like, okay, that actor is going to be the villain. And what do you know? That actor was the villain. But I think the potential was there. The problem is that most of the film tried to portray this character as a inhuman, unforgivable, unmerciful, dastardly, and malicious antagonist for Peter. And I thought that if that was the direction they were going, I thought they did a fantastic job making us hate this character and having a moment that just made us gasp at how torturous that character is. Like, honestly, like, no, this character needs to be taken down. And I felt like what they were doing with that character was amazing. The problem is that later in the film, that whole malicious intention they had with the villain just completely goes away. Now the character turns into some sort of innocent victim of a poor system. And for me, while the character had their sympathetic traits, I'm not exactly going to feel sorry for this character when you've had like the whole first half of the movie getting us to hate this character, considering how messed up in the head they are and how much of a psycho they were, a manipulative psycho, putting dangerous lives at risk. And then you reveal why they're doing it, but it doesn't add up, because if they really were victims of a poor system and they have emotional motivations for why they're doing, why are they wasting their time going on monologues to Peter to manipulate him when they're supposed to be victims of a poor system? You kind of being like the poor system yourself, mate. I didn't understand why they decided to go that direction. And then the last third of the movie, which honestly, I was not a big fan of the last third, and it's mainly because of the direction they took this character. They tried to give this character a redeeming side and being like, okay, we were wrong about this character. This character's not bad at all. We need to help this character. I didn't see any reason why they weren't bad. They were fricked up in the heads for most of the film. So why am I supposed to feel sorry for this character besides the backstory? Yes, the backstory was emotional. It gave them a good reason to go against the system. But when they bring innocent lives into the fact, I don't feel sympathy for them anymore, because like, why am I going to want to help this person? I don't like this person. And that sucks, because who the character is supposed to be a monumental thing for comic book fans. And it's such a monumental time. This character is finally in the MCU. And I didn't give a crap. I didn't care. Because the fact that this character was the villain, I have no idea why you decided to introduce this character like in that form. If you want me to be interested in any possible outcomes for like future MCU projects with this character, you need to give us like reasons to care. And again, besides the backstory, which I did care about, how this character ended up, why am I going to want to see more stuff with this person? I felt like the potential was there because they have a really good twist. There's a twist with like this system of characters, and I thought the potential was there to have them be the main villain and this one character and Peter to team up to go against this system, and the powers that reside in this character and Peter, with Peter's like mutation abilities kind of taking over his mindset, I felt like would be the cause of this system. And I thought that was a good idea. That was a potential. It would feel like the Mysterio twist all over again. But then you put that to the side and then turn this character, oh yeah, this character is the big baddie of the movie. And you're really saying that I'm just supposed to like this character at the end of the film? Like, get the frick out of here, man. That, in my opinion, that felt like some Phase 4 MCU writing. They did that in WandaVision. They did that in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, with Wanda keeping people in this town hostage just to fuel her dreams of a perfect paradise. Yet at the end of the show they said, oh, you saved these characters' lives. They will never forget what you did to them, even though you kept them hostage. And then Falcon and the Winter Soldier with the Flag Smashers. They tried to flame the Flag Smashers as innocent victims of, again, a broken system. And Sam saying, you have to stop calling them terrorists. Even though they're terrorists. But at least with those two installments, that this one sorely lacks is that they do make these characters pay the consequences for their actions. Wanda, she did go on to be controlled by the Darkhold in Multiverse of Madness, which I didn't like. That kind of goes against the development at the end of WandaVision, but she still, like, disappears and pays for her crimes. Same with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They don't just ignore that Carly's just some terrorist that could cause damage later. She's killed off. And by Sharon Carter, that is, which Sharon did a fantastic job. But here, they just let this character get off away scot-free. And for me, that felt like some Phase 4 writing. I don't understand how people can say that this film is better than those installments, which I'm sure they are after a rewatch. I don't know. I'll have to rewatch these MCU installments. When they have the same poor writing for its villain, trying to turn them from an evil character into a redeemable victim. And I didn't buy it. And if there was any moment this character had to die or be put into custody, I wouldn't have cared, because they are a threat. And there was a moment where Peter says, oh my god, I got him into this situation. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to get you in this situation. I'm going to go up there and shake Peter's hand and say, thank you, motherfricker, like, for taking care of this problem. So, I don't know. I feel like the only reason why they let this character get off scot-free is because, well, this is an iconic character from the comic books, so we need more of them in the MCU, so we can't just kill them off or just send them off away in the MCU in the same film. If you wanted me to get invested in this character, you should have, like, made us care about this character and not make them a villain. And honestly, I kind of lost a good amount of interest in what they're going to do with this character. I'm very sorry, guys. I felt like with me talking about that villain, it kind of turned into a bit of a rant. But honestly, if it was a rant, I would have been even angrier. But like, that, in my opinion, is what really took the film down by many points for me. I can forgive the pacing and fan service because there are still enjoyable moments to it. but I cannot forgive that ridiculously written villainous character. I'm sorry. As a villain, I still think they're probably fine. As an overall character, I didn't care. So overall, guys, yeah, unfortunately, this did kind of turn into a bit of a controversial film, but I was very disappointed by a good chunk of this film, because it could have been really good if the last third with this character was handled better, and I didn't feel like it was. It still wouldn't have been as good as No Way Home, but at least it would have been better than just and I'm very disappointed by that. But I didn't hate the film. I do not hate this film. I think it's an okay film. I thought it's a pretty decent film. I'm just torn by how I feel about this film. It's a good example of why you don't add too much fan service to a film. For the sake of making the characters that you want to help us care about and see interest in seeing in the future of the MCU, yet you kind of just add them in a situation where I just didn't care. Again, that's just my opinion, because I'm sure other people will care about that character, and other people will love this film. And again, if you love this film, that's fine. That's why I'm doing this review. I want to talk about my opinions without any spoilers. But that doesn't mean that I'm just going to ignore the good stuff. I think the acting was fantastic, especially Tom Holland and John Bernthal. I think the interactions with MJ was a good compromise, but doesn't go against the ending of No Way Home. The style was fantastic, the action's great, and the score was amazing. No pun intended. But the fan service was kind of wasted, the pacing was a bit off, and I did not like the villain of the movie. As the character that we were all theorizing who this actor was going to play, and then they were playing this character, I'm very, very let down. So, overall, guys, I'll give this movie a 3 out of 5. It's okay. I'm not going to tell people not to go see it. You should go see it, because it is a really good, character study for Peter Parker. And if you do love this film more than I do, and you love the things that I didn't like, I'm happy for that. That's why I'm doing this review. I think that the film is just fine. As a follow-up to No Way Home, yeah, nah. You're not going to get me to agree with that opinion, saying it's better than No Way Home. No Way Home is leagues better than this one. But anyway, guys, what do you think of Spider-Man Brand New Day? Do you love it, or do you hate it? And what superhero film do you have mixed feelings of that other people seem to love? Let me know in the comment section below. More videos to come, and I'm Daniel reviewing movies, TV shows, and doing videos, spewing my webs at you as the filming Daniel. Till then, peace out. Is this peace? Nah. Peace out, man.